Welcome to the Alberta Legislature for Friday, April the 19th, 1991. My name is David Carter, Speaker of the House and member for Calgary-Egmont. This morning after question period, the House will resolve itself into Committee of Supply as we continue discussion of the provincial budget. Today the department being examined is Public Works Supply and Services. Let us pray. We give thanks to God for the rich heritage of this province as found in our people. We pray that native-born Albertans and those who have come from other places may continue to work together to preserve and enlarge the precious heritage called Alberta. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions.
The member for Edmonton-Belmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have the honor today to present a petition signed by 90 people who are in the bricklayer trade. They're concerned about the proposed changes to the Alberta apprenticeship system and argue for its enhancement of the apprenticeship program rather than its demise.
Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by
Member for
special committees.
Calgary Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 93, I wish to report that the petitions for private bills which have been received by the Assembly have been taken under consideration by me as Chairman of the Private Bills Committee, and all the petitions received complied with Standing Order 86 with the exception of the following. The petition of the Town of Grand Cache for the Grand Cache Tourism and Business Development Authority Act, and the petition of the Lutheran Church Canada for the Lutheran Church Canada, the Alberta British Columbia District Act. The Private Bills Committee has had these petitions under consideration and recommends to the Assembly that the deadline for completing the documentation required by standing orders be extended in respect of these petitions to enable them to be presented to the Assembly once the documentation has been fully completed. Mr. Speaker, I request the concurrence of the Assembly in this recommendation.
Is there a call for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Notices of motions. Introduction of bills. Tabling returns and reports.
Minister of Public Works, Supply and Services, followed by the Minister of Advanced Education.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to file a response to written question 165.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to table the 1989-1990 annual reports for the following: the Alberta College of Art, Fairview College, and Keano College.
22. Minister of Energy.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to table with the legislature the 1990 annual report, the 75th anniversary of the Public Utilities Board.
Introduction of special guests.
Member for Calgary Mountain View.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like the Assembly to recognize the presence of two guests in the public gallery today. They are Nancy Trescott, who's the Calgary area manager for Xerox Canada, and Mr. Dennis Doyle, who's the controller from the national office for Xerox Canada. I'd like the Assembly to extend warm greetings to them this morning.
Honorable members, I draw your attention to guests in both galleries. There are about 120 people here from Fairview Junior High School in the constituency of Calgary-Egmont. They also include some members from the constituency of Calgary-Fish Creek. I ask that they rise and be given a warm welcome of the Assembly.
Ministerial statements.
Minister of Labor.
Mr. Speaker, 75 years ago today, Alberta became one of the first provinces in Canada to give women the right to vote and hold elected office.
Hear, hear.
I want to commemorate this important anniversary by inviting all members of the Assembly to join in paying tribute to the many women and men who worked so hard to win political equality for women. Their triumph is as important today as it was in 1916. Besides, if it wasn't for them, at least 13 of us would not be here in this house today. Now, many of those Albertans were brilliant, determined crusaders who helped form the social conscience of modern Alberta. They were women like Nellie McClung and Emily Murphy, who thought it wrong that a country like ours had laws that said, and I quote, "No woman, idiot, lunatic, or criminal shall vote." They also believed men and women had a duty to participate in the wider community. These were new ideas, and the attitudes opposing them ran deep. The Premier of Manitoba denounced Nellie McClung as a hyena in petticoats. Her own brother begged her to pipe down. Some people burned her in effigy, and many others wrote her letters telling her to stay home and darn her husband's socks. McClung once said she had trouble believing that one man's footwear could excite so much public interest. The old attitudes ran deep, but luckily not wide. Most Albertans supported political equality for women. They believed, as McClung and Murphy believed, in equity and fairness for everyone. They believed women would use the vote to make the world a better place. Today, 75 years later, Alberta is a better place. But we still have plenty of work to do. So, Mr. Speaker, in paying tribute to those who won the vote for women, let's also renew our commitment to the values of fairness and equity, the pioneer values that built this province, the values that allowed women to win the vote, and the values that will enable us, men and women, to continue making this a better world and a better province for everybody. Thank you.
Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We in the official opposition would also like to commemorate the 75 years since women got the vote. But, Mr. Speaker, if I may say so, I would say that we're a long way from equality in the society, Mr. Speaker. The minister alluded to 13 people, but I would remind her that there are 83 members in this legislative assembly, which is a long way from 50%. Mr. Speaker, also I say we're a long way away from equality when we look at the facts. Working mothers put in an extra month of 24-hour days a year, juggling their jobs and household responsibilities. as compared to working fathers in North America. After divorce, men experience a 42% increase in the standard of living, while women and children experience a decline of 73% in Canada. 60% of single mothers and their children live below the poverty level in Canada. 1.5 million Canadian women are poor. In Alberta, women working full-time earn an average of nearly $12,000 less than men. And 1 in 9 women who are married or living common law are battered in Alberta. In 1990, more than 5,300 families were turned away from battered women's shelters in this province. Mr. Speaker, I stress again, that's a long way from equality, Mr. Speaker. Now, there are things that this government can do if they're serious about it. A number of them that have been mentioned here on this side before. Pay equity would go some direction, Mr. Speaker. Better wages, prorated benefits, and greater job security for part-time workers. More job sharing flex time. An increased minimum wage. Raising social assistance benefits to reflect actual living costs, increased student loans for mature students, better job training, tying government grants and contracts to corporate track records on pay equity, daycare, affirmative action, job sharing, etc., extending parental leave, increased funding for battered women's shelters, reproductive choice. We've got a long ways to go to achieve equality, and we'll make sure that we work on it. Thank you.
Oral question period.
Congratulations. Do something.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to direct my question to the esteemed provincial treasurer, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, by now people all over this province know the bag of tricks this government has used to try, and I stress try, to hoodwink them into thinking the budget is balanced. And this would make Houdini blush with envy, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, the problem is that some of these tricks will end up blowing up in Albertans' faces down the road. And I'm talking specifically about this preoccupation with a so-called, and I stress so-called, balanced budget. Now, Mr. Speaker, the provincial treasurer is talking about selling off the Heritage Trust Fund assets. I'd remind him when it was set up, it was for a rainy day, and also to diversify the economy, Mr. Speaker, neither of which now the Treasurer is talking about in selling off these assets. My question is this. Given that the fund was set up for a rainy day, and given that the Treasurer's repeated statements that our economy is the strongest in the universe, if not the whole solar system, Mr. Speaker, will the Treasurer tell us why he wants now to get his hands on some of the best assets of the trust fund and sell them?
Speaker, I'm very pleased that the Leader of the Opposition has turned his attention to the importance of the Heritage Fund and the way in which it has provided diversification to this economy. And in fact, how it's played a significant role in the fiscal plan of this government over the past, I guess, nearly a decade, more than a decade now. Speaker, there are some important strengths that are attractive to Albertans and that are found in the Heritage Savings Trust Fund. Among them, Mr. Speaker, was the opportunity Albertans had to save money. Now, there's one thing that Albertans do understand, that you have to manage your own household and the government finances in a parallel way. You have to be much the same in the way in which you do it. When you have an abundance of dollars, you save money, Mr. Speaker. You invest it. And when you have to draw upon that money, Mr. Speaker, you use it for the purposes that it was intended. And that's fundamentally what the Heritage Savings Trust Fund has done. Now, the member talks about some of the assets in the Heritage Fund. I've heard members of the opposition party saying there's no value in the Heritage Fund. Well, now they're finding out that there is value there, Mr. Speaker. In fact, $15 billion in assets, of which $12 billion are financial assets. What we want to do, Mr. Speaker, is the following. We know that we have recognized the diversification of this province through the Heritage Trust Fund in part. We have invested in strong assets where the private sector was not exactly anxious to go. We took additional risk, but they've paid off. We've diversified the economy, we've developed new resources, we've generated jobs, and we've added value to the Heritage Fund. Now, what are we going to do, Mr. Speaker? Well, we're going to take some of those assets, which are controlled by a board elsewhere, which have already served the purpose of diversifying the economy and adding value for the people of Alberta, and we're going to put it back in the private sector.
We're going to put it back in the private sector, Mr. Speaker, and the only thing we're going to do is to take the profit that's been earned. Profit, Mr. Speaker. Now, there's a word that is anathema to the socialists across the way. There's a word they don't understand, Mr. Speaker. What we will do is take the profit and...
Thank you. Order. Now, perhaps we can get around to a second question and a second answer, both of them being short.
Anathema? Give me a break, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my second question is this. Yes, he's right. I agree with the Treasurer that Albertans do understand good fiscal management. It's this government that doesn't. That's the reality. Now, Mr. Speaker, I remember when the Liberal leader announced that he wanted to sell off the trust fund, and the Conservatives railed up and down against this idea. Now they want to sell off probably the best assets and keep the non-performing assets. Sell off the good parts and keep the losers. That's good fiscal management. My question to the Treasurer is simply this, Mr. Speaker. Isn't it true that the Treasurer is really preparing to sell off the house to pay the mortgage?
Yeah.
That is, to sell off the fund's assets so they can try to continue his phony Balanced Budget Act. That's what this is all about.
Mr. Speaker, I know the words are difficult for the Leader of the Opposition. He doesn't understand commerce or business. Doesn't understand the role that the Heritage Fund has played. Let me say, Mr. Speaker, that the assets in the Heritage Fund are above the recorded value in the Heritage Fund. And therefore, we can take those profits out of the Heritage Fund, put them in the General Revenue Fund, and leave intact the fundamental value of the Heritage Fund itself. And why would we do that? We would use those liquid dollars because, you know, dollars are very universal these days, Mr. Speaker, and they're not selling the assets of the house in that example. They're very universal dollars that can be reemployed to generate new developments in this province, to generate new jobs, which is our priority, and to show to the people of Alberta that we can fiscally manage this province. Speaker, the message is very clear, though, to Albertans. This is a balanced budget. This is a balanced budget. I know the member doesn't like that. But what does a balanced budget communicate? It's more than simply a balance sheet, as the Premier talked about. What it does communicate is the following: that we will not increase government expenditures and deficits so that you have to levy an unusual tax burden on people and on investors, and that we're sending a signal that this province is one of the best places for investment, and it's showing up right now, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to continue to diversify this economy so that high-value jobs are available to the youth of this province. That's what this plan is, and that's how this plan is working, and that's what those people don't understand it and don't like it, because it is working, Mr. Speaker, and it's successful for Albertans.
Mr. Speaker, I guess I don't understand commerce and business. I'll have to learn how to hand out millions of dollars of money to the corporate friends so the taxpayers can take a bath. I'll have to learn that from the Treasurer, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, but I want to move before the Treasurer gets so impulsive and gets carried away with this plan, Mr. Speaker, because he has no absolute mandate to change the trust fund and what it's supposed to be doing, Mr. Speaker. But before the Treasurer acts in an impulsive way to sell off the best assets of the trust fund, would he agree, and I'm saying change the mandate, would he agree to go around the province and hold public hearings before he does anything on this matter?
Speaker, there's no change in the way in which the Heritage Fund has been operated over the past 3 years. What Albertans have requested, and which this province has agreed to, is that we should use all the resources during the recession of '86 and the difficult times of '87 and '88 to ensure that the tax burden Albertans has not been too difficult. And in fact, we maintain that objective because Albertans pay the lowest tax of any province in Canada. We use the resources of the Heritage Fund, Mr. Speaker. The income from the Heritage Fund is about $1.3 billion a year. The total amount that's been transferred from the Heritage Fund to the General Revenue Fund is about equal to the value of the Heritage Fund itself, some $12 to $13 billion, Mr. Speaker. What has that done? That's allowed Alberta to not have a retail sales tax, Mr. Speaker, unique in Canada, the only province without a retail sales tax, to maintain the lowest tax regime of any province in Canada, so you and I, as Albertans, can take the money home for our own purposes and to attract investment here, because people want to come where they know that the fiscal regime is attractive to investment, where they can earn a return. That's what the Heritage Fund has done in complement with the rest of our fiscal plan, Mr. Speaker, and it's
Good, it's good. Thank you. Good. Now that we've had this exciting first question, which has lasted almost 10 minutes, let's have shorter questions, no preambles on the supplementaries, and shorter answers. Please.
Well, I always hesitate to go to the treasurer. I know it takes a long time, Mr. Speaker, so I'll designate my second question to the member for Edmonton Avonmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this day that we celebrate the 75th anniversary of women getting the vote, my questions are to the minister responsible for women's issues. Suffragette Nellie McClung hoped that obtaining the vote for women would be a means to social change, including economic equality for women. No doubt she would be disappointed to see that in a province which was among the leaders in according women the vote, women still own only 65 cents for every dollar earned by a man. My question is, why is this government lagging so far behind other provinces when it comes to ensuring women receive equal pay for work of equal value?
Mr. Speaker, we had an opportunity this morning to sit around the table, all of us as women in the legislature, and compare notes of how we got into politics and also how far we have to go yet and how we might proceed on that. But one of the more interesting things I think we did was trade some of Nellie McClung's statements, one of which she said is, one of her famous lines is, "Give him hell and let him howl." And I think as we continue to advocate for fairness and equity in Alberta, we all get engaged in that. Pay equity, as I've said many times, I support the principles of pay equity, and rightly so. It's a question of how we achieve the result which we all want, and that is economic equality for women. Judge Abella in her report was very clear that she did not think that pay equity would solve the entire wage gap. She thought it would solve maybe 5% of it. I am still to be convinced that bringing in legislation such as Ontario has brought in on pay equity is the right way to go.
Mr. Speaker, my second question, Alberta women have made progress towards equality since they obtained the vote in 1916. A year later, 2 women were elected to this legislature. However, women have a long way to go, which is obvious by the fact that there are only 13 of us in this assembly, only 16% of the seats. My question to the minister is, what initiatives would the minister propose to facilitate women's participation in the electoral process?
That's a very good question, and I think more and more we are all of us saying to people that we need to have more women elected, and we would welcome having more members here. Not, of course, that there is any one of our colleagues that we would want to see replaced, but as time goes on, we would hope that others... I have some in mind, but I think it's something that we all have to do to help more and more women be involved. I know that we all have conventions from time to time, and in the last one of my particular party affiliation occurred, a very successful convention. I took my 14-year-old niece with me, and she was very pleased to be there. But I think without having to say anything, she saw role models. She saw role models around. She saw ways of getting involved. And I think that is one of the ways that we will encourage and facilitate women getting into the political process.
Mr. Speaker, another woman active in the movement to obtain the right for women to vote was Judge Emily Murphy, the first woman magistrate in the British Empire. Unfortunately, as 2 women judges of the Supreme Court of Canada have recently pointed out, our court system still does not give women equal treatment. My third question is, will the minister support the suggestion of former Supreme Court Justice Bertha Wilson that the province set up a task force to investigate gender bias in the courts, thereby starting the process of much-needed reform?
I certainly support the efforts that are underway already. I know, for example, the Law Society of Alberta, who is the president of whom is now a woman for the first time in that history. The Canadian Bar Association Alberta branch is now headed by a woman in Alberta, again a first. The Law Society of Alberta, for example, has launched a study on gender bias in the profession. I know the courts in Alberta, the judges themselves, both at the provincial court level and the Queen's Bench and Court of Appeal level, have undertaken extended study sessions addressing gender bias in the court system. I know that the YWCA in Calgary is looking at doing a study. I know that the Women's Council, the Advisory Council on Women's Issues here in Alberta, is looking at doing a study. All of those consciousness-raising efforts are underway, and I think will continue to be undertaken. And certainly, I support anything that raises our awareness to the extent that eventually we get to the place where gender is no longer an issue. We don't look at how somebody is packaged. We say, what are your abilities? How can we be partners together? How can we make this world a better place? Anything that takes us down that road to that destination, I support.
Thank you. Edmonton Glengarry, on behalf of the Liberal Party.
Elect an NDP government.
Mr. Speaker, Albertans continue to be appalled by the huge number of industrial failures in our province. In the early 1970s, the then Premier of our province indicated that an industrial strategy or an industrial and science strategy or plan was needed for Alberta, and that there should be subsequent plans to guide the destiny of Albertans. Those plans have been forthcoming. The last plan ended in 1990. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Minister of Economic Development is this: why is it that the Minister hasn't kept up with the custom of providing and publishing these plans so that we can see that the direction, the needed direction for industrial development for our province?
Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised that the honourable member didn't listen when the throne speech was introduced, nor did he take the opportunity to read it, because there we did highlight the industrial strategy and some of the plans that we do have for the future. They were highlighted last night, again in my budgetary estimates, if the honourable member would have seen fit to be present, whereby we are working with Albertans. We indicated in the speech from the throne also we're going to have a conference on the economy in the fall this year, whereby we can receive input from interested Albertans as it relates to the industrial strategy that this government has followed and is proposing to follow, because we recognize it's a partnership role that we have with Albertans themselves in creating jobs for Albertans.
Mr. Speaker, the loss of hundreds of millions of dollars and the failure of the minister to control and to properly provide stewardship for those monies is ample evidence that the plan is either a phony baloney plan or there is no plan. There was supposed to be a formal document filed. That was the belief that Albertans were left with by the previous Premier. It's my information, Mr. Minister, that such a plan has been submitted to you, and I'd like to know why you haven't published it. Where's that plan?
Mr. Speaker, we're in the process of receiving input from the various departments of this government and the various ministers so that we can introduce that discussion paper, which will offer direction as we go toward 2000. I should indicate to the honourable member, though, he says we have no plan. Well, all one has to do is look at what is taking place in the province of Alberta. And let me highlight it again for the 100th time.
Let me highlight it again for the 100th time for the honourable member. We've got the strongest economy in North America. We've had some 102,000 jobs created within this province over the last 5 to 6 years. We got the highest investment per capita. I highlighted in excess of $20 billion worth of projects that are taking place in the province of Alberta. Exports are increasing. Our manufacturing shipments are increasing. Diversification is taking place whereby the majority of the jobs that have been created in this province over the last number of years have taken place outside of our traditional areas of agricultural and energy. Mr. Speaker, the record speaks for itself, but we want to build on that record, and we want to have the opportunity of having input from the public, from individual Albertans, as to where we go toward 2000.
Speaker, the minister keeps talking about the success of the diversification plan. I don't know of any government in North America that has lost more money than your government under your stewardship, Mr. Minister. Now, one of the things that the minister has been flashing around, Mr. Speaker, hush up, Jim. Given that this is the document that the minister has tabled and uses to show that there's supposed to be some sort of plan in place, the front page shows Novotel as the great success story. Mirius as a success story. Why are you flogging this, Mr. Minister? Why are you flogging the failures of you and your government as the success story for the economic diversification of our province? Why are you doing that?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member talks about other governments. Well, this government is the envy of other governments, and that has been relayed to us on many, many occasions. They envy the strength of the economy that we have within the province of Alberta. The honourable member opposite can holler and shout all he likes. The facts speak for themselves, whereby we've got the strongest economy, we're creating more jobs, we've got highest investment per capita, in excess of $20 billion worth of projects taking place within this province, all because of the economic strategy of this government, which goes on to provide meaningful employment and thousands of jobs for individual Albertans.
Red Deer North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Premier. It's been interesting to see over the last few days as the wide publicity of Premier Getty's visit to Quebec and Ontario is coming up. It's been interesting to see various position statements coming from those... thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been interesting to see the position statements that are coming out of those provinces almost in preparation to these informal discussions. I wonder if the Premier would tell us or advise us today, is he going to address any of these suggestions specifically on behalf of Albertans? Things like Premier Ray's suggestion of a constituent assembly for dealing with constitutional issues. Any of these going to be addressed specifically?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I do note with interest that more and more premiers are participating in anticipation of important constitutional discussions that will come in the coming months in our country. In terms of details such as the Constituent Assembly, that may be raised by Premier Ray and perhaps even discussed in some way by Premier Barassa. It would not be my intent to respond to that matter except along these lines. This is exactly the kind of thing that I would hope our special select committee of this legislature will be able to determine Albertans' views on. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, as I recall the position paper, it's one of the exact questions that should that type of constituent assembly option be followed. And I'll be looking forward first to hearing from the other premiers, but more importantly to hearing from the people of Alberta as they provide the grassroots input to our special select committee.
Well, it's somewhat reassuring to hear the Premier will be taking the message of the absolute importance of the views of the people to these two other premiers, but my question is, as it's going to take some time for Alberta's views to be formulated here, will the Premier be continuing to take a message to these and other premiers, or are these upcoming meetings sort of a one-shot deal?
Mr. Speaker, I think what we are facing in Canada is one of the most important and difficult challenges that we will probably ever face as a nation. And I believe that it will take all the wisdom and all the generosity and cooperation possible to solve this. But I also believe it's a long, long trip, and that it will take some time. For my part, I find I'm looking forward to the discussions with Ontario and with Quebec as a perfect lead-in to an important Western Premiers Conference, which will be coming up in several weeks, where I will be able to pass on to my colleagues, the Western Premiers, the views of Ontario and Quebec, and that we will be able, I trust, to start to develop the type of solutions to Canada's problems that will have a very strong Western input, because we're going to make sure that any New Deal or any new order, as some have discussed it, will reflect Western needs and Western interests. And one of the most strongest is going to be our determination that any New Deal, any new order, is not a centralized one, and rather that it will give to the provinces who don't have the huge populations an opportunity to have more meaningful input on national issues.
Edmonton Jasper, please.
Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Recreation, Parks and Wildlife. At the time the Canalta Golf Course was built in Kananaska country, it was located in one of the most sensitive areas of that part of the province. It's one of the three most critical areas of wildlife habitat. So critical that the adjacent lands were set aside under the mitigation plan for wildlife. I quote from the Cabinet Policy Document 1977, "No facilities will be located east of the village and the golf course." Now, in view of the fact that the Managing Director of Kananaska's country reports directly to the Minister, unlike the other parks, I would like to ask him to explain why the Department is now considering expansion of the golf course onto those critical lands that were set aside in the mitigation plan in 1977.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite refers to the Evan Thomas area in Kananaska's country, and if we go back to the public meetings that were taking place in those days, some 10 years ago, this area was identified in the Integrated Resource Management Plan of Kananaskis as a potential recreational area at that time. Any progress into a golf course in that area will be under an environmental review. And the Minister of Environment has told the proponents as lately as 1 month ago that they will be going through that process, and they're going to be calling public meetings in that respect in the future.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there seems to be some dispute on that point. The Canalta project is now one of several which is inching towards approval, while the Cabinet dithers on proclamation of the Natural Resources Conservation Board Act. In view of the fact that Canalta is composed of close personal associates of the Premier, such as Jackie Parker, Norm Kimball, and Brian Bygrave, I'd like to ask the Premier if he would give his personal assurance that the government will not approve expansion onto this wildlife habitat without an independent review by the Natural Resources Conservation Board.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the honourable member pointing out that I have many friends in the province of Alberta.
Many supporters.
Just 2 weeks ago, I was able to meet with thousands of them, Mr. Speaker. And then last Saturday with hundreds and hundreds in the Stettler area where they came out. I think there was double the number who showed up with the member from Edmonton Glengarry when he tried to hold a get-together recently. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Recreation Parks has answered the honourable member, and I don't know why he would want more than asking the people for input. That's what the Minister is doing.
Sure.
Calgary McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the lack of understanding about Native Canadians is manifested in our society in ways which lead to discrimination and injustice. This is a situation which could be reduced if more of us were aware of Native culture and Native lifestyles, Native spirituality, and so on. I would like to congratulate the Minister of Education about the excellent curriculum materials which have been prepared. However, I would like to also ask the Minister why Native awareness is optional only and not mandatory somewhere in the school system, so that more of us would know more about our Native peoples.
Mr. Speaker, it's an interesting subject, and I appreciate the honourable member's accolades. It is mandatory in certain parts of the curriculum, Mr. Speaker. When I look at the elementary social studies program, clearly there is a number of sections within grades 1 and 2, and I see in grade 6, grade 7, grade 8 and 9 social studies curriculum. Our Native people, our focus on Canadians and the diverse makeup of Canada is focused on, and we encourage all young people to understand and to become more accepting of Canadians of all origins.
Mr. Speaker, my understanding from teachers in this area is that there is not enough material, and some of it is optional, some very good material. I'd like now to turn to the Minister of Advanced Education and ask him if he would speak to his colleague, the Minister of Education, about those 19 and 20-year-olds who are in the school system, who want to remain in the school system, but who receive no funding there. The Minister a few weeks ago said that the ABC will do it. Students want to stay in the school system. Could you cooperate with each other and provide funding so they can stay in the school systems and receive the education they request?
Good idea. Good idea. Mr. Speaker, I think we set a fine example of cooperation in the post-secondary system along with the Department of Education. A very important element in the whole scheme of things obviously is career development and employment, because, Mr. Speaker, they provide substantial funds for many of these Native people to return for upgrading in our system. I appreciate the honourable member from Northwest asking the question. The assurance I would give her is, we do, McKnight asking the question, although I think, Mr. Speaker, in our view, we do a good job, we can always do a better one.
I want to point out to the honourable member, as I said the other week, that any child who enters our high schools at the age of 19 is fully funded for that school year beginning September 1. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the provincial government through the Department of Education provides nearly $11 million this year to school boards to mount adult education programs. So, Mr. Speaker, amongst the Departments of Advanced Education, Career Development and Employment, and the Department of Education, we believe that we are going the distance to provide those educational opportunities to our young people as well as those more mature Albertans.
Why don't the Liberals...
Calgary Glenmore.
Mr. Speaker, this week I've had the opportunity on several occasions to meet with business leaders in Calgary, and they have praised our government in its initiatives to balance the budget in spite of the difficult times, and they too are struggling with balancing their own budget. And these business people have also expressed a view that they would like to become more aggressive in the international market, and that is their stronghold, and especially in the Soviet Union and in the Eastern Bloc countries. And I'd like to ask the Minister of Economic Development and Trade to indicate, in view of his budget restraints, his department's initiatives in helping facilitate these many Alberta firms who want to go to these countries to develop the market there.
Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the fact that we did have a budgetary cutback of some 14.8%, we feel that we can still be very aggressive in pursuing trading opportunities for Alberta companies. As members are aware, we have taken a threefold thrust as it relates to our trade initiatives: the U.S., the Pacific Rim, and the European Economic Community. We work very closely with the private sector in facilitating the sale of the products that are produced within the province, recognizing again the importance that exports play to job creation, because it is estimated for every $1 billion worth of exports, there's 19,000 jobs created. We export in excess of $16 billion worth of products from this province, which is a very important job creation component of the economic well-being of our province. So the short answer is yes, we're going to continue to aggressively work with the private sector companies in accessing not only our own funds but also federal funds.
Calgary Gilmore.
Speaker, these same people feel that there's an abundance of opportunity for Albertan firms in Thailand and Indonesia, but the government does lack the guidance and aggressiveness in helping to capture these markets. Could the minister outline the department's role in these countries as well, if there is any?
Mr. Speaker, we work very closely with a number of departments within our own government. The Department of Federal and Intergovernmental Affairs takes the lead role as it relates to our foreign offices and our foreign contracts. It's interesting to note, though, Mr. Speaker, that the opposition parties are suggesting that we shoot our salesmen so that we curtail the exportation of the goods from Alberta. This is not a thought that we share, because we believe it is important that we have individuals abroad selling the province of Alberta, selling our products, thus in turn creating jobs within this province.
Stony Plain. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Alberta is blessed with many thousands of miles of natural gas liquid pipelines. These pipelines carry methane, ethane, propane, and butane under extreme pressures in order to have them in their liquid state. There's only approximately about 3 feet of cover over these pipelines. We have had disasters in Millwoods, near disasters near Fox Creek, near Stettler. And these lines, unfortunately, are very frequently put through populated areas, both rural and urban. My question to the Minister of Energy is, will the Minister update the construction standards by requiring more frequent installation of block valves to decrease the volume of leaks, and secondly, by requiring a greater coverage in urban and populated areas to prevent the accidental damage to these lines by landowners, all of this in the interests of safety?
I'd be pleased to review it, Mr. Speaker.
What do you say?
I'd be pleased to review it.
I appreciate the Minister putting me on hold on that particular question, and I would appreciate being a part of that review because it certainly is becoming a very serious problem. In addition, the transmission of natural gas liquids is being increased to the extent that we are now using crude oil pipelines to do the same. This creates another potential hazard, and I would like to ask the Minister if he is prepared to develop an emergency response plan so that if there is a problem, the people will be evacuated properly and they would have full knowledge in advance of what to do to avoid a potential disaster, because currently these kinds of problems are dealt with by the individual operators, and there are certainly many individual operators of pipelines.
Major plans.
Well, Mr. Speaker, to answer the first question, we have some very capable people, so I won't need the member from Stony Plains input on that, Mr. Speaker. On the second point, Mr. Speaker, we do have an emergency response plan in place.
Chapter 2, West Yellowhead.
Mr. Speaker, gravel truckers in Alberta are frustrated. They're unable to get government work due to the government's method of hiring truckers on the basis of the core list of preferred workers. This system is unfair and excludes many qualified people who depend on the gravel trucking industry for their living and livelihood. Will the Acting Minister of Transportation admit that this core list system is elitist and unfair? And will he promise to move to a quota system for hiring and ensuring that truckers get a fair chance for work in the province of Alberta?
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I can't think of a fairer system in terms of providing opportunities for entrepreneurs in the gravel trucking industry than that system that we currently have in the province of Alberta. The comments that the honourable gentleman made in several different phases of the question, I do not believe, Mr. Speaker, relates to the Alberta that I'm aware of. Any individual in this province who wants to participate as an entrepreneur can purchase a gravel truck. Mr. Speaker, work is made available through the tender system of Alberta Transportation Utilities or Alberta Public Works Supply and Services or other departments, and those individuals can can either bid for work or can sign up through a variety of regional and district offices that the province has throughout the province of Alberta, district transportation offices. There are restrictions to ensure that, in fact, an individual can have no more than several vehicles running at any given time. There is a minimum haul rate that is provided to ensure that these entrepreneurs, well, for the most part, individuals who own their own gravel truck, can participate. And Mr. Speaker, when we start talking about quotas, I think we start talking about a form of central planning that is really a little away from the environment of the marketplace and private enterprise we have in the province of Alberta. And this quota and central planning idea, for the most part, is now being abandoned in most of the socialist environments throughout the world, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, in the past winter, 2 projects were undertaken in the Peace River area, and both of them were given to truckers who are on a government core list. But the minister and his employees in his own department have told us that the core list is slowly being phased out. If this list is really being phased out in favor of another system, why were these large government projects given to those with the core list while other workers had no work at all?
Mr. Speaker, there may be a case here of misunderstanding by the honourable member. What is a core list, Mr. Speaker? We have 21 district transportation or regional offices throughout the province of Alberta. Truckers come to these offices and say to the employees, the civil servants in the province, is Alberta Transportation Utilities going to be paving this road or graveling this road? If so, can we sign up so that when a contract is tendered, we will know when the tender is going out, and would you let us then know who the winner of the contract is so we can go and sign up to do it? That, Mr. Speaker, is a form, I guess, the core list that the individual was talking about. It's an opportunity for individual truckers to go to a district or a transportation office to seek information when a project might be made available, to allow them to find out who would win the contract, to allow them to sign up in hopes of getting work. It is not a list that only says that, well, the first 4 or the first 6 or the first 8 people who sign up are going to get work. Mr. Speaker, it is a list of availability to ensure that the private sector, the entrepreneur, the gravel trucker in this province has an opportunity to seek work throughout the whole province of Alberta. And at each one of these 21 district or regional offices, there is an information package which allows and shows where work is throughout the whole province. And these truckers can move throughout. Mr. Speaker, it is a convenience and an...
Calgary Northwest.
Mr. Speaker, the government's claim that they're interested in promoting the tourism industry to be a $10 billion industry by the year 2000 is becoming, quite frankly, less believable. The Alberta ski industry is falling behind the British Columbia ski industry because we're not offering what the tourists want, which is on-hill ski accommodation. Now, my question to the Minister of Tourism is the Department of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife has turned down the application of Mr. Joe Couillard to build condominiums on his resort because he needs to have that development to ensure the ongoing viability. He doesn't want money, he just wants permission. My question to the Minister of Tourism is, what is the Minister of Tourism doing or has done to persuade his colleague in the Department of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife to provide that permission so that this development can go ahead, create jobs that we keep on hearing this government wants to promote, and develop the tourism industry?
Mr. Speaker, very definitely the ski industry demands on-hill accommodation, and every ski facility in Western Canada is addressing the issue. Skiers today want high-speed chairs and on-hill accommodation as part of that convenience. So we do lose from Alberta a good number of skier days because we don't have those types of facilities. I'm sure the member opposite will know that I've made representation to my other colleagues and the specific colleague he mentioned, and in the policies in that area have to be reviewed if we are going to maintain the skier days that we would like to see happen in the area.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Fortress is a company, Fortress Ski Resort has been around for 23 years, and they're concerned about the next 23 years. Given that the government paid for all of the underground facilities, including water lines and sewer lines, and even underground parking at Kananaskis Village to help promote Nikiska, will the minister give us some assurances that this is not simply some kind of a means of protecting the government's investment in the sweetheart deal given to the friends of the Premier that are running Nikiska down the road?
Mr. Speaker, there has been some expansion on the hill that the minister speaks of, and the project is under consideration. And in due course, I'm sure the policy changes will be considered.
Calgary Fish Creek. Very briefly.
Just a supplemental. I didn't want to leave an inaccuracy standing on the floor. The government did not. The honourable member led us to believe that the government paid for all the services that was in the Kananaskis Village operation. That is not true. They're being cost shared by the private sector that's involved in those hotels that are there.
Calgary Fish Creek.
Mr. Speaker, with some concern I've been noticing in recent months a widening in the price differential between heavy and light crude oil. And that price differential, Mr. Speaker, has been as large as $9 or $10, and that has significant ramifications for heavy oil producers. And I'm wondering, can the Minister of Energy explain to the Assembly today the background to or the causes of this widening price differential, and can indicate what he's prepared to do to help promote the recapture of some of this price differential for Alberta's heavy oil producers?
Excellent. Well, Mr. Speaker, regrettably, the price for heavy crude oil is about $5 to $7 U.S., when the price for West Texas Intermediate is trading around $21 to $22. Mr. Speaker, that's a differential of $14 to $16, which is very significant. It's significant in the sense that Alberta is producing more and more heavy oil as the profile for lighter crude oil is declining. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member for Fish Creek asked about the reasons. One of the primary reasons has been the Gulf War, and that since August 2nd, the Kuwait refinery has been taken out of production, and Kuwait refinery was one of the biggest in the world that upgraded heavier blends to a lighter crude oil, as a matter of fact, for jet fuels. Mr. Speaker, North American capacity and European capacity is full, and for this reason, there is a downward pressure on the heavier ends, and it is creating this wide disparity between heavy and lights, and it is regrettable. Mr. Speaker, this speaks to one of the reasons why we have the Lloydminster upgrader, and why we have agreed that Syncrude can take from its excess capacity bitumen from other projects to continue to upgrade the heavier blends in the province.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in view of the government's involvement with the bi-provincial upgrader at Lloydminster, I'm wondering if the Minister can advise the Assembly as to the progress of construction of that very significant project.
Mr. Speaker, the Lloydminster upgrader is to do exactly what concerns the member for Fish Creek, and that is capture the differential between $5 to $7 for heavy oil, upgrade it to get the price of $21 to $22. That is a very significant difference that we could capture in the province of Alberta. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, the bi-provincial upgrader only requires about a $4 differential. Today we're seeing a differential of 3 to 4 times that. So it makes the viability of the Lloydminster upgrader extremely viable today. Mr. Speaker, there are some 1,800 people working in Lloydminster today, Albertans and people from Saskatchewan, building the upgrader. We'll have 330 people working when it is fully operational, and the cost of the project, Mr. Speaker, is around $1.2 billion.
We're very hopeful that we will be able to meet the target date of November 2nd so we can capture this very significant differential between heavy and light oil.
As a follow-up to a previous question period, notice of a question, Calgary-McCall, with response to Edmonton-Avonmore.
Mr. Speaker, on April 17th, member for Edmonton-Avonmore asked a question referencing the Jimmy Wolftail Memorial Society, which runs a halfway house for Native people on the reserve at Brockett. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to indicate that, first of all, that one of the reasons for the decisions, and I might add these were ADAC's decisions, was to reduce the service at the particular place in Brockett, was due to the lack of members that were accessing it. First of all, Mr. Speaker, the use of the facility was at 37% over the last 2 years, and because of the lack of utilization, and additionally, the amount of additional facilities that were available to the Native people on the reserve, we decided that we would close that facility. Recognizing, Mr. Speaker, that there are pagan counseling services at Brockett. There is a treatment center at the St. Paul Treatment Center in Cardston. There's a blood reserve outpatient service at Standoff. And ADAC has full facilities at Lethbridge and the Blairmore Crow's Nest area offices and the Lander Treatment Center in Claresholm. So, Mr. Speaker, in addition to 3 other facilities in the area...
Thank you, Honourable Member. This is not a ministerial statement. Thank you, Edmonton-Avonmore.
Mr. Speaker, ADAC was forced to cut back on services because they had insufficient funds to continue. My question to the chairman of ADAC is, in view of Justice Causey's recognition of the urgent need for alcohol and substance abuse treatment alternatives in places where Native people can access them, what commitment will the chairman of ADAC now give to ensure that there is treatment for Natives to meet the urgent need for that treatment?
Mr. Speaker, there is no lack of commitment from this government to the treatment of Native people in the province of Alberta. Mr. Speaker, all treaty Natives work under the program from the National Native Alcohol and Drug Abuse Program, and the Métis, which come under the auspices of the provincial government, are well served. Mr. Speaker, 49% of ADAC grants went to Native programs in the province of Alberta in the last year and will continue to do so. And in addition, Mr. Speaker, 40 spaces have been made available for Native adolescents in St. Paul this year under the auspices of the Solicitor General. So, Mr. Speaker, as you can see by this, we have not only maintained the services to Native people in the province, we have increased them in this fiscal year.
Orders of the day.
Committee of Supply.